Hello everyone and welcome to MediSimplified. Myself, Dr. Shubham Mishra, passed FMG exam in 2019 December attempt. That was my first attempt. And today I'm starting a series of 10 videos in 10 days, 10 p.m. at YouTube, which will be the repeated FMG topics by FMG for FMG. So I hope you found this videos useful, and my main intention is that in the upcoming 10 days, the 10 to 20 minutes which we'll spend every day at 10 p.m. on YouTube together will help you to gain 15 to 20 extra marks in the exam. Not extra marks, actually, the marks which you deserve, right? So let's go further and let's see what I have to discuss with you guys today. First, we are talking today about humerus. Now, after looking at this, people might be asking that, sir, what is the need to learn humerus, right? So the basic thing is you get few not integrated, interrelated questions from the humerus anatomy and the clinical subjects. So we'll talk about it. So you don't need to know everything about humerus, but you need to remember 5 to 6 important landmarks in the humerus. First is this one, that is the greater tubercle, right? Second is this, the lesser tubercle. Then there is this deltoid tuberosity. Then here from in the center, on the shaft of humerus passes a radial groove, right, which is also called as spiral groove. You need to know that. And then when you go distally in the humerus, this part, right, which is a bit extended as compared with this one. So if you remember the distal part, laterally and medially there is an epicondyle. So important thing, many people tell me that I don't remember which one is the medial or lateral. मैं ऐसे याद रखता हूँ कि जो वाला ज्यादा खिंचा है, जैसे ये दोनों अगर हम स्ट्रेट लेंगे तो ये शॉर्ट है lateral epicondyle, पर medial epicondyle थोड़ा सा खिंचा हुआ है. So ऐसे मैंने याद रखा है. तो this is how I remember medial epicondyle, which is bit stretched, is medial epicondyle. So things which you need to remember is greater tubercle, lesser tubercle, deltoid tuberosity. There is a spiral groove at the shaft, and the medial epicondyle. One more thing is there. I'll let this as a question for you. There is a tendon of a muscle which is passing through this intertubercular groove. So this will be a homework for you guys to find which muscle passes through the intertubercular groove of humerus, and you'll have to comment in the comment section after the video ends, right? So from deltoid tuberosity, it is for the insertion of deltoid muscle. ये सबको नाम से पता है ना, insertion of deltoid muscle. तो ये कोई पूछता नहीं है. Nobody asks about it. Very rarely it will be asked, but this can be asked that between this greater and lesser tubercle, there is a groove called as intertubercular groove. So usse what passes through there, right? Which muscles tendon goes from it. This is what you need to learn and comment in the comment section. Now going further, these are the 5-6 landmarks which we need to remember for getting for getting the questions correct when they are asked in FMG exam. Now before going about those typical landmarks, there is one more thing about shoulder, that is rotator cuff, which you should remember. So the easiest mnemonic is SITS, right? So the muscles which are there in the rotator cuff are supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor. ठीक है, मैंने कैपिटल में लिखा है और एक बार ये भी लिख देता हूँ, not major, major cut. Teres minor is a part of rotator cuff, and subscapularis. अब मैंने subscapularis को भी bold में लिखा है. There might be a reason why I have written subscapularis in bold. So first of all, this 4 muscle, that is supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis make the rotator cuff. This is one thing you should know. And this 3 muscle, they get inserted at where they get inserted. They get inserted at greater tubercle, right, or tuberosity, whatever you called it. So here it was, right, this greater tubercle. यहाँ insert होगी. All this 3 muscles, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor, greater tubercle. But this subscapularis gets inserted at lesser tubercle. Right, and it is also known as forgotten muscle of rotator cuff. Forgotten muscle of rotator cuff. Right. कोई आपसे फंक्शन नहीं पूछ रहा रोटेटर कफ का, कोई कुछ नहीं पूछ रहा. There will be one question: which of the following is not a part of rotator cuff? The option will be supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres major, and subscapularis. So teres major is not a part of rotator cuff. Second thing they can ask, which is known as the forgotten muscle of the rotator cuff. 4 options will be supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis. So the answer will be subscapularis. Third question, it can be which of the following muscle get inserted at lesser tubercle. So the options will be supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and the answer should be there, subscapularis. Remember, subscapularis is an exception of the rotator cuff. Supraspinatus and infraspinatus and teres minor get inserted at greater tubercle, and subscapularis get inserted at lesser tubercle, and it is also known as forgotten muscle of the rotator cuff. So here one question can be framed out of these three ways. So I hope you remember rotator cuff very well before going for the exam. Now another thing is abduction of arm. So there are abduction. Everyone I think knows that abduction is taking the arm away, right? So 0 to 15 degree, some muscle will help in abduction. 15 to 30 degrees, some other muscle will help in abduction, and more than 90 degrees, some other muscle will help in abduction. So what are those muscles who help in the abduction of arm? So first, 0 to 15 degree will be done by supraspinatus. Supraspinatus. Yes, what we know till now about supraspinatus, it is a part of rotator cuff. It is a part of rotator cuff, right? It gets inserted at greater tubercle, and it helps in abduction of arm. Kitna par? 0 to 15 degree. So if there is a question, which muscle helps in initiation of abduction of arm? So the answer should be supraspinatus, right? So supraspinatus is an initiator, or which helps in initiation of the abduction of arm. Next thing is 15 to 90 degree abduction. Now here, a very important muscle which we learned that it gets inserted at deltoid tuberosity. Yes, you are right, the deltoid muscle. So the deltoid muscle helps in 15 to 90 degree of abduction of arm. Matlab yahan tak, right? Till here. Now above this, right? Above this, it is done by two muscles. One is serratus anterior, and another one is trapezius, right? So what other question can be framed here? Which of the following muscle helps in overhead abduction? Overhead abduction, right? So till 90 degree is at the level of head, but if you go above 90, it is overhead abduction. So that is done by serratus anterior and trapezius muscle. So overhead abduction, if it is asked, the answer should be serratus anterior and trapezius muscle. But 0 to 15 is supraspinatus, which is the initiator of abduction of arm. 15 to 90 degrees deltoid muscle, and overhead abduction or more than 90 degree of abduction of the arm is done by serratus anterior and trapezius muscles, right? So this is another aspect of the arm or the humerus area which can be asked in the MCQs way in the FMG exam. Now once again, now we are coming back to this image of this humerus. So important structure passing from the humerus. Why I'm mentioning this? This will have an applied aspect at radio, not actually radio, in ortho, and it can be directly answered from the knowledge of anatomy also. So we have three muscles, three nerve, I'm sorry, axillary nerve, radial nerve, which is also known as laborer's nerve, and ulnar nerve, which is also known as musician's nerve. So axillary nerve, it passes from, where does it passes from? It passes from posterior aspect of surgical neck of humerus. Okay, so if you look here once again, this is the head, here are the tubercles. So in between this part, which I'm doing very dark, this is the anatomical neck of the humerus. But there is another neck, this one, there is the another neck of humerus. Why it is called surgical neck? I think you know it is the most common site of fracture, right? Fracture most commonly occurs at surgical neck of humerus, in the humerus. So it is called as surgical neck. So at the posterior aspect of the surgical neck passes the axillary nerve. Okay. Now next is radial nerve. I already told you it passes from the radial groove or the spiral groove. It passes from the radial groove or the spiral groove. Right? Am I clear till now? Now, once again, I told you to remember this, that the one which is more stretched, this is less stretched, this is more stretched, this is more stretched. This one is the medial epicondyle, and the ulnar nerve passes from the posterior aspect of medial epicondyle. Okay, the ulnar nerve passes from the posterior aspect of medial epicondyle. Now, the question comes that there is a patient who had a road traffic accident, he fell from his bike, and he had a fracture at the neck of humerus. They are not writing anatomical neck or surgical neck, but they are writing the neck of humerus. We know surgical neck is the most common site of fracture. So which of the following nerve will get damaged? And they'll give the random options. So the answer there will be axillary nerve, which is damaged. When it is damaged? At the fracture of neck of humerus. If the neck of humerus is fractured, it will damage the axillary nerve with it, right? Now, when I was telling you this thing, initially the spiral groove, I told you it passes at the shaft, okay, somewhere here, at the shaft. So I told you radial groove pass, and from the radial groove, there is the radial nerve which is passing, also known as Leber's nerve. So if there is a fracture at the shaft of humerus, there is the fracture at the shaft of humerus, then it will damage the radial nerve. Fracture shaft of humerus, it will damage the radial nerve. And again, I told you just now that at the posterior aspect of the medial epicondyle passes the ulnar nerve. So if there is a fracture in which the medial epicondyle is damaged, right? Fracture medial epicondyle. If this is happening, it will lead to damage of ulnar nerve. Now, important thing is that you should remember all the muscles and the sensations which are passed by this axillary, radial and ulnar nerve. You should remember those muscle कि कौन से मसल को ulnar nerve सप्लाई कर रही है, कौन से मसल को radial nerve सप्लाई कर रही है, कौन से मसल को axillary nerve सप्लाई कर रही है. और अगर बहुत ही डीप में क्वेश्चन है, they are asking very integrated and very deep, or they are want to complicate the question, they will ask you which muscle will be affected. I think this is enough to go for the FMG exam, but if they want to go in more depth or try to make it more complicated, so they will ask that if there is a fracture at the shaft of humerus, right? So it will damage which muscle, right? So in that you should know that fracture shaft of humerus will damage radial nerve, and then radial nerve जिस muscle को supply करेगी, radial nerve is supplying the muscle, that muscle will be paralyzed. So this is all the correlated thing from the humerus and nerve and the muscle which you should know. Now going to the important one-liners. So first is ape thumb deformity. We all know it is due to median nerve, right? Median nerve paralysis or median nerve damage. Partial claw hand, ulnar nerve. Partial claw hand, ulnar nerve. You can repeat it with me, right? So complete claw hand, it is ulnar plus median nerve. It is ulnar plus median nerve. Wrist drop is due to radial nerve. Wrist drop is due to radial nerve. Radial nerve occurs at radial nerve damage occurs at fracture of where fracture shaft of humerus. Fracture shaft of humerus. We learned it just now, right? Then foot drop. This is not from the upper limb or humerus, but just if you are remembering wrist drop, you should know the foot drop also. I think many of you remember it. It is due to damage of CPN, that is common peroneal nerve. Now talking about the epicondylitis. Right? I told you to focus on medial epicondyle, but remember that there is also a lateral epicondyle, which if gets swell or injured, there is a swelling over here if it is kept under regular stress. And similarly, if the medial epicondyle is kept under regular stress, it will get swelled. So this is called as epicondylitis. So those epicondylitis have been given different names. So tennis elbow is another name for lateral epicondylitis. Lateral epicondylitis. Right? Similarly, golfer's elbow is a name for medial epicondylitis. Medial epicondylitis. Got it? Now, student's elbow, it is for bursitis. There is a bursa at olecranon called as olecranon bursa. Right? If that bursa is getting swollen up, it is called as olecranon bursitis. It is called as student's elbow because students usually keep their I cannot show you right now. Students, suppose this is the desk. Students usually keep their olecranon process on the desk, right, continuously. So it is under continuous stress, and this leads to swelling of that bursa called as bursitis. This is known as student's elbow or olecranon bursitis. Now, last is housemaid's knee. Housemaid's knee is a question for you guys. It is occurring in the lower limb, right? It is not from the upper limb, but it is a homework, not homework. I'll answer you right now. It says, kya homework dena bar bar. So it occurs in pre-patellar bursitis. Occurs in pre-patellar bursitis. But one homework is there, right? Ki intertubercular groove. Intertubercular groove से क्या पास होता है? ठीक है? This is question. This you have to do comment in the comment section if you are following this videos. So this is few important one-liners which you should remember. Ape thumb deformity, median nerve. Partial claw hand, ulnar nerve. Complete claw hand, ulnar plus median nerve. Wrist drop, radial nerve. Radial nerve fracture is occurring due to fracture shaft of humerus. This thing you should remember. Foot drop due to common peroneal nerve. Tennis elbow is another name for lateral epicondylitis. Golfer's elbow is another name for medial epicondylitis. Student's elbow is another name for olecranon bursitis. And housemaid's knee is another name for pre-patellar bursitis. So now we are going to talk about the important root values. So in exam, you might be asked about the few root values of the major nerves. Usually they ask about the major nerve. So axillary nerve, the root value is C5, C6. Ulnar nerve, it is C7, C8, and T1. Radial nerve, it is C5 to T1. That is C5, 6, 7, 8, and T1. And musculocutaneous, if I'm not wrong, it is C5, C6, and C7. So these are the important root values which you should remember whenever going for the FMG exam. Now, important topics: Erb's paralysis and Klumpke's paralysis. So Erb's paralysis, in any paralysis, in both this of paralysis, you should know the roots affected, right? Roots affected. So in this, the roots affected are C5 and C6. C5 and C6. So when C5 and C6 are affected, so they include two major nerves, that is axillary, and one is musculocutaneous nerve. Okay, so these two nerves are affected. So in axillary, if you remember, where does the axillary nerve damage occurs? If it is a fracture of humerus, it occurs in the fracture of neck of humerus, right? So this is not relevant to this, but I just wanted you to keep on revising it. Root values affected are C5 and C6, and it occurs due to damage at Erb's point. What is Erb's point? For this, you have to know the brachial plexus very well. If you want to watch brachial plexus, you can get a link over here and you can watch this video if you have the sufficient amount of time. Now going about the axillary. So in axillary, if C5 and C6 are affected, it will affect the deltoid muscle. And the deltoid muscle ka apanne kaam, what did we learn about the deltoid muscle? It helps in the abduction of the arm. How much? 15 to 90 degree, right? So this will not happen because it is damaged, right? It is damaged. So what will occur here? It will be the adduction of arm. Similarly, if we talk about the musculocutaneous root value is C5, C6, and C7. So if C7 is not affected, so there will be a question: which muscle is spared in Erb's paralysis? So that answer will be coracobrachialis. Coracobrachialis. So this muscle is spared in Erb's paralysis. So C5 and C6, which muscles will get affected here? It will be the brachialis. It will be the brachialis and biceps brachii. Biceps brachii. So if these muscles are affected, what will happen? It will lead to the extended elbow, and pronated forearm. I will write forearm. So this gives a typical sign in Erb's paralysis, which is called as Klumpke's. So this gives policeman or porters or waiters tip hand. All right. So this is something which we should know about Erb's paralysis. Erb's paralysis, damage at Erb's point. Root values affected is C5, C6. So the two major nerve which get damaged is axillary and musculocutaneous. Axillary C5, C6 damage will lead to damage of deltoid muscle. It will lead to adduction of the arm. Adduction of the arm. I will write here adduction of the arm. And then if musculocutaneous nerve is damaged, C5, C6 will lead to damage of brachialis and biceps brachii. It will lead to extended elbow and pronated forearm. Muscle which will be spared here is coracobrachialis. And the coracobrachialis which is spared, this can be a question: which muscle is spared? That is coracobrachialis, and this will give a typical sign that is called as policeman or porters or the waiters tip sign or tip hand. Right. Now going further, we'll talk here about Klumpke's paralysis in short, if possible. So Klumpke's paralysis. Here also, what we should know first, that which roots value are affected. Roots affected are the lower arm. The one more thing. Here the upper trunk is affected, right? Our point is that upper trunk of brachial plexus. This is important. So in Klumpke's paralysis, roots affected are C8 and T1. Right? Roots affected are C8 and T1, and here the lower trunk is affected. Lower trunk is damaged. So roots affected is C8 and T1. This usually supplies the intrinsic muscles of hand. Intrinsic muscles of hand. And if it gets damaged, it leads to hyperextension at metacarpophalangeal joint. And it causes flexion at interphalangeal joint, IP joint, right? So the metacarpophalangeal joint between the metacarpals and this knuckle area, basically, it gets hyperextended, and then the interphalangeal joint gets bent. So something like this, and if you can see it properly, this is called as claw hand, right? So in Klumpke's paralysis, we'll see claw hand. Okay, and if you remember C8 and T1, they are usually, if you remember the root values, the root value of ulnar nerve was C7, C8, T1. So basically, here ulnar and median nerve are damaged, right? And it is leading to claw hand sign in Klumpke's paralysis. I hope the Aus paralysis and Klumpke's paralysis are very clear. We can expect one question out of this both topic. Now we'll talk about the important splints before we go further. Okay, so this will be the last thing which we are going to discuss. So if you will see, this is something like this, right? It is doing your wrist, it is extending your wrist. So this is usually known as cock-up splints. Cock-up splints. Okay, this is used usually for wrist drop. And we have learned wrist drop is occurring due to radial nerve paralysis, right? Radial nerve damage हो गया इसलिए यूज कर होता है wrist drop. And radial nerve damage हम लोग को याद है कब होता है? Usually fracture shaft of humerus. There is nothing called as typically a very integrated process. It is everything correlated. If you study one subject properly, you can solve the question from other subject. And if I want to be more specific, if you know the basic sciences, the basic subject of first year and second year, that is anat, physio, biochemistry, pathophysiopharma, you can solve all the clinical subjects very easily. That is what. And now you'll see there is a difference in this cock-up splint and this cock-up splint. यहाँ पे there are some screws and something, and this is just like a bandage or what you say, straps. So this is known as static one. So this is a static cock-up splint, and the one with screws and everything is known as dynamic cock-up splint, right? So both are used for radial nerve damage, and radial nerve damage we have learned till now that it occurs at the fracture shaft of humerus. Now this you can see the knuckle, this is called as knuckle. So his knuckle is bended down. So this is known as knuckle bender. This is known as, sorry. So this is known as knuckle bender. Knuckle bender. Okay, and this is usually used for claw hand. And what we learned, claw hand occurs in Klumpke's paralysis. Klumpke's paralysis. We also learned that claw hand occurs. Two types of claw hand we learned. One is partial, that is due to only ulnar nerve damage, and the complete, which occurs due to ulnar plus median nerve damage, right? This is one thing. And for ulnar nerve damage, one more small thing I wanted to tell you, that book test and card test. Book test and card test. This both are usually done for ulnar nerve paralysis, to check the ulnar nerve paralysis. And at last, something like this. So this is usually, this one is unilateral, it can be bilateral also, right? So this splint is known as aeroplane splint, aeroplane splint, and it is used in brachial plexus injuries, right? So these are two, three important splints I wanted to show you. We discussed everything about humerus, which I think you should know before going for FMG, or the areas from where in humerus from where the question can be asked in FMG exam. I hope this video serves the purpose, and thanks for watching. Do come back tomorrow at 10 PM, same place, same time, same jagah, agle din, right? So thank you. Do share this video with your friends if you find it useful, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel, Medi Simplified. Thank you.